I'm talking about, with each of my guests, real life American culture. This is not some bloated, overproduced mass media conglomerate. This isn't even polished. This is raw.
Welcome to Deep Americana.
Ray Carney. I'm here with Lance, and without further ado, this is Lance, and we're going to talk about various subjects today. So, Lance, should we start this out with like disability, or do you want to start out with transgender stuff, or?
I think they all kind of tie together, to be honest with you, because like honestly, like we were talking about earlier, like I know a lot of trans folks, and most of them are also disabled in some way, or also experience a lot of mental health problems, because it's very traumatic to be kind of forced to live as someone you're not for a long time, and that'll manifest as mental a lot of the time, but it's all tied together, so it manifests as physical as well.
I can see that.
Lots of chronic, like fatigue, chronic illness, sleep problems, stuff like that.
Right. Okay. Do you want to get into like the basis, kind of your disability? What we were talking about a little bit earlier.
So, I don't know that I would classify like it as a disability in the same way that like my friend who has severe hemophilia has a disability. Like he can't go outside when it's cold or his joints lock up. That's a different kind of disability.
Right.
But
this is more almost even
it's
a cultural thing, a perspective on how people view people.
Yeah,
Right?
like my issues are mainly psychological, mainly trauma oriented. I have pretty significant traumatic stress disorder, and that has manifested as a lot of different mental illnesses along the way. It's manifested as depression. When I was a teenager, they thought I was bipolar, but no, just depression and dysphoria and all sorts of. Oh, gender dysphoria is an important term. Dysphoria is the opposite of euphoria. So, you know how, like, even if you smoke a lot of pot, you get a body high, right? And, like, you get those rushes of good feelings through your body are physical euphoria. Physical dysphoria is when you've got rushes of aches through your body, like when you've got the flu. Gender dysphoria is when your skin doesn't feel right. It's like a form of body dysmorphia. Like, someone with severe body dysmorphic disorder might get 100 plastic surgeries because their nose isn't quite right, and it just drives them nuts every time they look in the mirror. Anorexia is a form of body dysmorphic disorder because they look in the mirror. I mean, I used to have pretty significant anorexia. I'd look in the mirror, and even when I could see my ribs, I could only see the fat. Gender dysphoria is like...
Like a phobia?
It's like if you put on socks that are too small or something. Like, even if it isn't like a constant thing in your mind, like I'm not constantly thinking I should have a penis. It's more like there's something off. There's something that isn't right. There's something that doesn't feel right. And like not all trans people experience dysphoria. That's very important to say. A lot of trans people just feel that like what their gender is in their mind isn't matched up with like the societal expectations that have been dumped on them, and so they transition socially but not medically, and that's fine too. That's very valid. I personally experience a lot of dysphoria. I'm planning on having multiple surgeries. I've been on testosterone for almost 7 years. It's different for everybody. Some people will like, some trans guys like myself, FTMs, they only ever experience dysphoria for their chests. So they get top surgery, but they're fine with like all that's in their pants. They don't really care about that, and even if they did, surgeries aren't really there yet to make it like nothing was different, you know? Like, so they just get top surgery. I actually have very, very little dysphoria about my chest. Part of it's because it never got very big, but like, I'm gonna get my tits off someday just because I have a little dysphoria about the fact that our stupid fucking society won't let me take my shirt off because I have female appearing chest.
Which is ridiculous.
It's insane. But, like, other than being able to go to Waterworld shirtless, I don't really care about my tits that much. I care about what's in my pants. I have severe reservations about that. It is an incredible chore just to take a shower for me, just to go to the bathroom for me, because I have to interact with that. Like, even if I hadn't had a series of sexual traumas in my life, like, I would still have dysphoria about that,
Well, so
probably.
it
Probably not
reminds-
as severe.
Does it remind you and
But-
puts it back in your mind that you're different than other people? Or?
It's not that I'm different, it's that, like, I look at it and I'm like, that's supposed to be a penis. Where is it? What the fuck am I missing? There's it's colloquially known in the, like, FTM community as phantom boner syndrome,
Okay.
but like sometimes when I'm aroused, I feel like I've got a penis I could stick in somebody. It's like phantom limb syndrome, but for
Right.
that. So, like I guess the best way I could describe like gender dysphoria is like, imagine if you like woke up tomorrow and somebody had amputated all your fun bits and put the wrong ones in their place, and you're just like, what the fuck? Where did this come from? I use a metaphor sometimes that, like, so imagine you were born with two noses or something, like, or like one day you woke up and you had a second nose, and like your name was still Ray.
Right.
You believed you were still Ray, and you believed that you were still a one-nosed person because that was what you were used to, that's what you have in your head, that's what your brain is telling you you are, but now you have two noses, and everybody around you looks at you and they go, you're a two-nosed person. Your name is now Daphne. I'm only going to call you Daphne, and your pronouns are D, dim, dare, and you are only going to be addressed by that. I don't care what you say you are. That's all in your head. You are a two-nosed person, and you are a Daphne.
Which is our culture appropriating what you should be, which is what
It's-
is so frustrating.
It's almost
and
like an
sad.
assimilation process. It's like,
Right.
no, you will conform. You will be like us. And like growing up, like not every trans person is binary either. A lot of people who are trans don't fall cleanly into one gender or another.
Right.
But I do. I'm binary. I'm not very binary in my presentation, but I'm very, very binary in my identity. I fully identify as a man. And growing up, like, people were telling me, you must conform, and I was saying, I want to, I just want to conform on that side. Those motherfuckers get to play with G.I. Joe, it's not fair.
Right, I fully understand that as well. That it's like, because you have this or you have that, you fit into this peg or that peg, which is not how we should look at things. It should it should be a decision you make. It's not something you're born with, right?
Well, and I always was a tomboy, like, from the beginning and stuff like that, and this was only like 20 years ago, not even 20 years ago, and people just didn't get it. And like, I had short hair, and people would ask me if I was a boy or a girl, and I didn't know how to respond because I knew I was a boy, but I knew I'd get in trouble if I said I was a boy after that was bullied into me. So I just, my name's Beck, nice to meet you, like, and they'd go up to my mom, and it pissed my mom off so much she made me get my ears pierced. She told me that I could either grow my hair out or get my ears pierced because she was tired of people thinking I was a boy. So I got my ears pierced because I was not growing my hair out again, and that was like damn near traumatic right there. And
I can imagine, especially you feel one way.
I think I was 8.
Yeah.
And like, ugh, no. I eventually, after that, like, that incident got it so ingrained into my head that it wasn't okay for me to want to be a boy that I, like, closeted myself. Like, I wasn't just closeted to everybody else anymore. All of a sudden, like, I started thinking, you know, there's something wrong with me, but if I just try hard enough to be a girl, it'll happen. Fake it till you make it. So I started wearing pink and dresses, and it would only last a few weeks before I was back in sweatpants, but I kept trying and trying and trying, and I was so excited when I started puberty. Like, most trans people dread it. I had this, like, anticipation that was, like, equal parts excitement and dread, because I thought that once I got my period, the gender dysphoria would go away. I'd feel like a woman. And I got my period, and, well, now for a few days out of every month, I'm extra miserable, and that's great. And, like, I was excited when my boobs started to grow, because, like, okay, if I look like a girl, I'll feel like a girl, and it just didn't work. And a little after high school, I decided maybe I was non-binary. I discovered that that was a thing, and I'm like, okay, I'm like bi-gender. Sometimes I feel like a guy, sometimes I feel like a girl. And then I went to college. It was a little liberal arts school up in Gunnison, Western State, and loved that place to death. And I started, like, I started going to the Gay Straight Alliance, because I knew I was bi very shortly after I knew I was trans. My first crush was a guy, my second crush was a girl. I was like 8. Like, I knew that gender wasn't the important factor for me in determining a partner.
Right.
It was just like how I vibed with them. And so I joined the Gay Straight Alliance. I'm like, oh, I'm bi and I'm questioning my gender. And they're like, okay, that's cool. And then, so I went through my first semester at college. And then my second semester, very early in, I was taking a shower and I was thinking about trans issues, and you know how you have those shower thoughts. And like, I had this thought, like, I was like cleaning myself, and I'm like, this is disgusting, and my body feels wrong, and what if I transitioned? It scared the shit out of me.
Right.
It scared me so much that I got out of the shower and I texted my boyfriend at the time, and I'm like, he was an RA, he was on call that night, he was busy, and I'm just like, look, I know you're busy, but I need you to talk me down because I'm really scaring myself. And he's like, you know, maybe you are. Like, it doesn't surprise me. Like, we've played around with your gender before, and you're always more confident when you're, like, to go into gory details, pegging him or something like that. Whenever I was, like, in more of that masculine headspace, I was in a better shape. And so the next day I got up and I got dressed, and my hair was like down to my ass, but I flipped it up and I put a beanie on and like put it in a ponytail, and like, so it was just bangs, but it was up.
Right.
And I took an ace bandage, which if you are like trans or considering questioning your gender or anything like that, do not bind with an ace bandage. It is bad, but it's what I had. So I bound with an ace bandage, just wrapped up my chest and put on some of my more like masculine clothes. I stuffed a sock down my pants, and for the first time like in my life, it seemed, I felt validated. I felt like I looked good when I looked in the mirror. Like when I was in my fucking prom dress and everybody was telling me I was beautiful, I'm like, no, you're wrong. And I looked in the mirror and I'm like, I'm kind of hot as a dude. And within the next few months, I kind of just put things into action. Like, I don't know for sure what the rules are now, but there were some stupid laws at the time telling me I needed 3 months of therapy before I could
Do you
get
feel
my
like those
letter
laws
routine.
were in place to dissuade you from doing what you wanted to do?
Precisely.
Which is ridiculous again.
Oh, you want to talk ridiculous? Colorado just proposed 6 new laws, all of which are going to decimate like trans teens, LGBT teens in particular.
Why? What's it gonna do?
The laws are things like it becomes illegal to do certain transition related healthcare on people under 17. One of them is that your parents will now be in charge of all your health care up until you were 17.
Right.
I mean, when I was in high school, I didn't even attempt transitioning or anything like that. I was still in my, like, weird, I'm a girl if I try hard enough stage. But, like, even then, I know I wouldn't have gotten my sexual health checked if I hadn't been allowed to sign a piece of paper that said my parents wouldn't find out. I was private about that. I didn't want my parents to know about that stuff. And I'm sure I never would have gotten like STD testing and stuff as a teenager if I hadn't had that option. And they're taking that away. They're taking away the confidentiality, or they're threatening to.
That's terrible.
Yeah,
It's very terrible.
Yeah, there are a lot of like really scary bigoted laws that they're trying to place into effect right now. Like, since the impeachment hearings and stuff, lawmakers everywhere have been trying to slip things under the rug that they don't think people are going to notice. Like super shady bills and stuff. I mean, like raising the nicotine age to 21, for example, they slid that so far under the radar. They announced it during the impeachment trials, and they made it an instant change, but because there was so little information to be had, everybody was pretty sure it was 6 months. I work at a head shop, I'm not going to mention which, but we sell a lot of vape stuff, and we didn't even know it was illegal to sell to 18-year-olds until we were 6 days non-compliant, because nobody told us. And then, like, the next day after we found out, we placed a call into the Colorado branch of the FDA, and they said, "What? We are just now hearing of this.
Oh, wow.
I didn't know that it has to be 21. That's good to know. I'll write it down right here."
That's
We've
insane.
been calling that branch of the FDA every week for updates, and they don't know shit.
That's
Most
insane.
of what we've found out has been us employees doing independent research, like going on government websites and reading the fine print until it says, "Oh, by the way, as of February 20th, fuck 18-year-olds.
Right.
I
I feel like that's the way a lot of laws are coming into place.
You want to know something else shady about that particular thing? The 18 to 21?
What's
Something
that?
else that I find shady, at least. If you are active duty military, you're grandfathered in. You can be 18 if you've got your military card. And, like, on the one hand, that's, like, I get why they did that. That's because people were going to argue, well, then you need to raise the military age, which I think they should. I think they should just make it a flat age for everything. Make it like 19, so kids are a year out of high school. There you go. But, like, the way that I'm starting to kind of think it is I mean, everything is connected. They're all smarter than they want us to think that they are, and they're just trying to feed the military machine. They know that a lot of stupid 18-year-olds are going to go, well, I can't have my dual anymore unless I'm in the military. Let's join the Marines.
Right.
We all got kind of upset when the law went through, and, like, my store manager made some signs for the store announcing the change, and, like, one of the signs said something to the effect of, well, you can go out, ship out, get shot up, come back with severe PTSD, but fuck you if you want to smoke. Like, something like that. Like, and it's awful. Like,
Yeah.
It-
It gets ridiculous that you can go out at these ages and rack up debt in college or go into the military.
yeah, or you get married, or have a baby, or, I mean, I know they can't really set an age on when your body is able to have a baby, but they could set an age for marriage. Like, you can get married at 16 in some states.
Which is ridiculous too, you know.
You can sign your life away. You cannot smoke a cigarette.
Let's talk about like medications that we've been currently giving people, SSRIs, psychotropics.
Prozac Nation.
Right.
Yeah.
Do you feel like, I'll say, our hallucinogenic like renaissance we're in right now, especially with mushrooms being decriminalized? pharmacist,
Yeah.
with that can replace SSRIs, psychotropics, things of that nature.
So, the thing that I think, like, pharmaceutical companies don't take into consideration, and then, like, a lot of people who do drugs but aren't, like drug users but not psychonauts, like, you know, like, people who aren't trying to get anything particular from it, people who just want to get high for the sake of getting high. I think that a lot of those people don't understand that every single metabolism is different. Every person has gone through a million different things, even in utero, that have influenced how drugs will affect them now. So Prozac, SSRI, it only triggers it's a selective serotonin reuptake inhibitor, and it only actually prevents reuptake of certain serotonin by certain serotonin receptors. That is great for about the 35 to 45% of the population that those are the right receptors for, but 6 out of 10 people who are put on ridiculous doses sometimes of Prozac for treatment of their symptoms never experience any symptom relief. They just experience negative side effects. I was one of those 60%. I have obsessive compulsive disorder. It was very severe for a while, so they put me on 80 fucking milligrams of Prozac every night.
Oh, wow.
I got severe acid reflux and some emotional numbing. I like my emotions just in general didn't, it was like mood stabilization, but just like dullness.
Right.
But it didn't touch my depression, and it didn't touch my OCD. My obsessive thoughts were still bad. I was still washing my hands until they bled. I still had all the magical thinking, like if I walked over the wrong number of cracks with each foot, my mom would die, like stuff like that. And it was a nightmare. It was really hard to live with. And then I started smoking pot regularly. I had done pot a few times. Like when I did it in high school, I just got kind of stoned and felt good. When I started testosterone, I tried it shortly thereafter and got altogether too high, because when you start HRT, you reset your body to puberty, essentially. And so I was all of a sudden a 13-year-old boy smoking a bowl with my 22-year-old female friends, and they got stoned, I got wrecked, and I was scared of weed for a few years after that. But then I decided, like, I had seen so many people that it helped, and I had seen so many people that it had just mellowed out, and I knew that I was really neurotic, and I needed like 14 hours of sleep every night to recover from just the anxiety draining my energy all day. And so I started with like a little chill. I'm a little one-hitter, just a little $5 piece of China glass. I'd load up my bowl, and I'd take 2 hits, and I couldn't smoke sativas in the beginning, or even hybrids. It had to be indicas and CBD heavy strains. But I would go, and I would just, in the beginning, I'd just take 2 hits, and then I'd go lay on my floor and stare at the ceiling for 2 hours, because I would dissociate from it. I'd have an almost ketamine-like reaction from all the pot. Like, THC can have hallucinogenic properties because of the way that it imitates anandamide. High levels of anandamide in your brain. It's an endocannabinoid, works in your endocannabinoid system. Like, anandamide is responsible for like balancing a lot of things. Your whole endocannabinoid system is balance. It balances all the other systems by like affecting the flow of neurotransmitters, affecting your pain signals, affecting digestion, sleep, circadian rhythms, immunity, etc. But like anandamide, it gives you a good mood. It gives you faster thoughts, like bigger, faster thoughts. You can, that's why when you get really stoned, you come up with ideas that will change the world, but as soon as you get a piece of paper to write them down, they're gone. But too much anandamide triggers a part of the CB1 receptor. I think it's the CB1, it might be CB2. I know that anandamide and THC and CBD all trigger both. But it can trigger anxiety, it can trigger thought loops, and it can trigger mild psychosis. This is most commonly experienced as delusions of paranoia, like, I smoked this joint and now the cops are gonna get me, is the most, popular colloquial conception of that. But that is literally a delusion. It is literally a psychotic effect caused by excess amounts of THC. A lot of THC used to make or give me a psychedelic effect very similar to ketamine. I would dissociate. I used to have this, I called it like movie theater syndrome, where I felt like I was in a movie theater and I was watching my life on the big screen, and if I wanted to, I could reach over and grab my Coke and pick it up and take a sip because I was disconnected like that.
Right.
And that's something that you normally only experience with actual dissociatives, but just because of the way that cannabinoids are involved with every major system in your body, you can have a myriad of effects, and everybody is different. Like I said, I was really sensitive to it in the beginning, but I worked up my tolerance, and eventually I graduated to a little bubbler, and I could smoke half that bowl, and then I could smoke all that bowl, and
Right.
now I do probably a dozen fucking, 50 milligram dabs a day, and at this point THC is just maintenance for me, but it's been a trade-off for me, pot. I have lost some qualities that I miss. Like, I used to have very, very lucid, possibly predictive dreams, like almost psychic.
Mm-hmm.
I would know things before they happened.
Deja
and
vu type stuff.
yeah, exactly. Like, I would live scenes that I had dreamed before.
Right.
And now I barely ever dream because THC keeps you in your deep sleep cycles longer, you experience less REM sleep, you don't dream much. I think I used to be more sensitive and empathetic before I was just constantly numbed by the amount of permafry that I've got going on from all the pot I smoke. I do get withdrawals if I don't smoke pot, and that sucks. Like, sometimes when I wake up in the mornings before I take my first dab, or even when I take my first dab, I'm really nauseous because I don't have my nausea suppressed by THC yet.
Right.
Like, sometimes I'll take my first dab of the day and I'll cough so hard I throw up. But it's worth it because when I first started smoking pot, I was on about 13 different medications, 9 of which were psych meds. I was on fucking that ridiculous amount of Prozac. I was on, that's like the max dose of Prozac that any responsible psychiatrist will ever
Aren't you on
prescribe.
medications just to counteract the bad effects of other medications,
Yeah,
which is a lot of people are.
Like, I had to take Prilosec every night because the acid reflux from the Prozac was so bad. I was on Seroquel. That was awful. The worst
terrible.
one. I had a really bad psychiatrist when I was about 15 who, I told him that I had a lot of anxiety at night, and he said, he handed me a prescription and told me to take it every night. And this prescription is for something that if you take it every night, you are only supposed to take it every night for a maximum of a month. It is most commonly prescribed as a breakthrough anxiety treatment for panic attacks. Want to guess what this is?
What is that?
Xanax.
Oh, yes.
He started me on a super low dose, but it was an every night thing, just every single night, and that went on about 2 years. When I was 17, I told him I didn't want to be addicted to a fucking benzodiazepine,
Right.
so he cut me cold turkey. And I know I wasn't on a high dose, but it was enough. I went through withdrawals, and I felt so bad that I went back to him and said, please put me back on that. I'm not ready. I can't handle this. And when he put me back on it, he doubled my dose. And then, you know, a year and some change away, I went up to college, and he got really, really bad about filling my prescriptions in time. So I'd be up in college, and I'd run out of my Xanax, and I'd have withdrawals, and I'd, you know, not sleep the night before and have to send an email out to my professors at 6:30 in the morning saying, look, I'm going to be at class today, but I'm not going to be at my best. I just want you to be prepared. Don't ask me a lot of questions. I might fall asleep. I might leave the room to throw up. I don't know. And I was in a really small school, so and I was a fucking psychology, sociology major, so all my professors were very understanding. Some of them would ask me after class how I was doing, and I'd say, you know, doing all right. I'll be doing a lot better in 2 hours when my psychiatrist gets off his fucking lunch break and fills my script.
Right.
With weed, I weaned myself off Xanax, I weaned myself off Prozac, I weaned myself off Seroquel. Seroquel is also terrible for withdrawals.
Seroquel is just terrible in general.
In general, but
I don't even believe we should be, you know, prescribing it.
When they hospitalized me, so when I was 15, my cutting got so bad that my mom actually found blood left over, and she took me straight from school to a mental hospital that day that she found it, and they did my intake, and they asked if I ever had trouble sleeping. That was the question. Do you ever have trouble sleeping? And I'm like, yeah, I'm pretty sure everybody does, especially when they have severe mental health problems. And so they said, okay, we'll put you on Seroquel. Everyone I talked to there who hadn't reacted so badly to the Seroquel the first night that they had taken them off the Seroquel after that was on it. Because it zombified you enough. It kept you under control.
It dumbed you down.
And exactly. And like the Seroquel, it knocks you out. It makes you a zombie if you try to fight it. I have heard of people using it recreationally, and I think they are insane because it does not sound fun. All it does is make you stupid and sleepy.
Doesn't it build up in your system as well?
It does. And the withdrawals for Seroquel, I dare say, might have been worse than the withdrawals for Xanax. Maybe not physically, but mentally. Like, Xanax, I was shaky, I was nauseous, I was horribly anxious. Seroquel, if I ever missed a dose of that, before the pot, of course, I would try to go to sleep that night, and when I started falling into sleep, I would instead fall into sleep paralysis and be wide awake but unable to move my body and just have terrifying vivid hallucinations. And that was not fun, so I was very, very careful about not missing my Seroquel, and I thank pot every fucking day for I'm off that shit now.
So would you say that, not say, but it sounds exactly like you've replaced, you know, your meds with, you know, something natural, with pot?
Most of them, yeah. I have made more progress in the treatment of my mental health in the past 2 years of recreational self-medication than I did in 5 or 6 years of having pills shoved down my throat.
I feel like when you say, our culture, I think, is starting to come to terms with this.
And like back then, I was going to therapy and all that too, and that wasn't really helping because I was so just fucked from the meds that I couldn't communicate my feelings, and it wasn't working. It was really frustrating, and now I'm down to very, very few pharmaceuticals, and I'm working my way off those.
Well, I think actually we should probably stop there. We're running at 40 minutes.
Oh, shit.
That's okay.
I wanted to talk about ketamine a little bit.
Well, maybe we should save that more so.
For another one?
Yeah, because I feel like you could probably fill 30 more minutes with that and a bunch of other subjects, actually.
That's it. Thanks for listening to this episode of Deep Americana. Share with others. Tell your family. Keep talking to each other out there. Peace, love, and Guns N' Roses.